The big fella did make his return, but it wasn't as dynamic as maybe some people would hope. We're going to break it all down coming up right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Kayla, Santiago alongside Keith Pompey each and every day for Locked On 76ers as the Sixers do fall to the New York Knicks last night, 111-99. We're going to break everything down. Joel Embiid's return, along with maybe some standouts and some positive notes we can take away from the game. And if we will see Joel or PG in the Cavs game coming up here today. Before we get started, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $100 and $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Joel Embiid, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. I'm going to start off by, I have said throughout every single episode, the last game that I want him to come back is against somebody like Karl-Anthony Towns. And I know Cat wasn't really good in the paint coming into this game on the defensive side of the ball, but Embiid really struggled. And it wasn't just against Cat. His conditioning wasn't there. But to me, Keith, this is what I expected. My hopes were that he had 25 to 30 points. What I expected is usually what happens when he comes off of injury is his conditioning's not there, and it takes him a few games to get back. Were you expecting worse? Were you expecting better? Did it meet your expectations? How do you kind of overall look at this, Keith, in Joel Embiid's performance when he's back?
I guess it's tough to say. I mean, he didn't look good. Let's just put it that way. In regards to was I expecting it? I mean, with all the hype and all the build up, I mean, this guy's been practicing for what, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I know he couldn't be with the team in the 3 games he was suspended, but the days that the team practiced in LA, he was out there with them. He practiced a couple of days ago. They said he was doing 5-on-5. I was expecting a better performance. I mean, we look at it, we say 13 points, but he was actually 2 for 11 shooting. He missed his first 5 shots from 3. He was 1 for 5. He looked rusty, which you expected. He looked a little out of basketball shape. I mean, he was gassed after 5 minutes. And then the one thing is he looked timid at times. And so, I didn't expect Karl-Anthony Towns to dominate him, and that's what he did. He dominated Embiid, if you really want to be honest with it. So, no, I did not expect that. I thought that Embiid would probably come out here and try to impose his will on national TV against him.
And it raises a lot of concerns, right? Is it just because he hasn't played with this team? Is that knee really bothering him? Now, he is playing with that brace, so it's a little awkward probably getting used to that, but he's also played with having a brace on that knee before. So there's a lot of questions that kind of arise here. And I looked at it immediately and said, we've seen this with Joel before where he'll try to match the intensity of a big. For example, we've seen it with Joel Embiid and Al Horford. We're looking way back at this point where Al Horford will drain a 3 in his face, and then Joel tries to do the same thing. You're saying, okay, well, why isn't Joel just playing his game? We didn't really see that match in intensity this time around. Cat was going out there doing a little bit of everything defensively and offensively. He really set the tone for New York coming into this game. And Joel Embiid looks like he hasn't played basketball since the summer, and he really hasn't been. But what we've been hearing, Keith, is he's been dominating in practice. He's going throughout these scrimmages. He's looking really good. To me, I understand that there's a difference between practice and game, and this is kind of where I figured Joel would look. But this looks like somebody that really hasn't been dominating in practice. Maybe Andre Drummond's not giving him enough run for his money. I don't really know, but he looked absolutely gassed out there. And this worries me if he's not going to continue to play those back-to-backs, because where is that conditioning going to lie when all of a sudden he's in one game and out the next?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there was one time when he was knocked to the ground. He fell to the ground like he was down there, like on his back. And the thing about it is, you're right. There's two things. one thing, you can't always believe what you hear, right? People are always
Yeah.
going to say they dominate, they do this and that. But I also think that, practice is different from the game because you can stop it. It's like controlled. You just don't keep running up and down the
Right.
floor. But also, I think a lot of the problem is with Joel is, and he said it, is like mental. He has to get over the mental thing. There was times in the past where Joel would just power his way to the basket, or he would do a move, he would do this and that. He just seemed a little too timid, like he didn't want to exert himself for fear that he would get hurt, right? And then when you compound that with, you know what, I'm not quite in basketball shape left yet, it looks bad at certain times in the game. And that's exactly what happened. But like the one thing you said, we're talking about, what he had, 3 rebounds. I mean, I know
Yeah.
he played 26 minutes and 25 seconds, but Joel was the biggest guy out there on the floor, and you were expecting him to get the rebounds. You were also expecting him to dominate in the paint, and he wasn't doing it. Now there was a couple times I felt like they needed to get the ball a little quicker to him, and they didn't.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I feel like his playing timid or for fear that he would probably re-injure the knee kind of had a negative impact on his performance.
And it's interesting because you look at it and you say, Joel is clearly, it's not only even the injury because Joel's been injured before, but I think Embiid knows at this point of his career that the time to win is right now. It's not in 3 years. It's not in 5 years. It's not getting other stars on this team. You got Paul George and you got Tyrese Maxey, and this could be the year. Right now, it's not super promising, right? But this could be a situation where you help bring this team past the second round of the playoffs because that's really what they're looking at right now. Of course, NBA Finals is the goal, but you're looking to get out of the second round realistically. So Joel knows that at any point, if he comes down awkwardly, if he lands a way that he doesn't want to, if he falls on a certain way, that could be the end not only to his season, but also to the 76ers' hopes. So there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Now, is this something we're going to continue to see throughout really the first half of this season? Do you think he's going to get a little bit more used to it? Because playing with a brace is uncomfortable as it is, but I want to see Joel go out there and dominate because if he's in his head, Keith, I think that almost can cause a little bit more injury if you're second guessing how you're going to come down or how you're going to go up, and then everything just kind of falls out of place.
I mean, it could be something that continues. Like let's face it. It could, like, if they're saying he never had a setback, if they're saying that, and if that's 100% true, then it's something that he's been dealing with since he came back, since the Olympics, right?
Hmm.
So, mental thing can impact you negatively. Now, again, he's saying it could change the next game, it could change in 2 games. He says he believes that he's going to get over the hump. But yeah, it could have a negative impact on someone. It's kind of like, and it's not that caliber, but sometimes you see people and all of a sudden they have a hitch in their shot, and it's because of the mental. Like they just don't do the things they did before. I think that for Joel Embiid, it's easy for us to say, just go out there and play. Don't worry
Yeah.
about getting injured. But when you rush back and you came back too soon, that's always going to be in the back of your mind. So, hopefully for the Sixers, if I'm them, yeah, this is something that I want to, address and get over.
Yeah, and I think that's conversations that he'll have to have with Nick Nurse, even Paul George, the superstars of this team, Tyrese Maxey, because when you look at this situation, it is the injury on top of where you want this team to be, what you know you can lead this team to be. Not only that, seeing this team without Joel Embiid year after year, but especially in the beginning of the season, I mean, they are not going to win anything if they don't have Joel Embiid and the supporting cast of Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. So there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders right now. Now, granted, he is the franchise player. This is what everybody is amping him up to be. But trying to get over that mental factor, I think, is easier said than done. We see it a lot of times when you look at the NFL, even, right? We say that, well, these players aren't playing preseason games and we expect them week one to go out there and be perfect. And it's kind of messy and all over the place because they don't get that real game speed. Or when they have an ACL tear, it takes a little bit longer to come back physically and mentally. Now, Joel Embiid kind of going through a similar thing right now. So we're going to have to wait and see. Overall, I think this is a performance, hopefully, Keith, that we can look back on and say, well, we don't really remember that because it was his first game back. because he just didn't look like himself last night. He was very timid, as you alluded to, very rusty, very tired, exhausted. And this is something I hope that we can look past going forward, because we're going to talk on it in a moment. But his co-star and Paul George is definitely putting up some points up there that Joel Embiid's going to try to match.
Yeah, yeah.
That he will. So we're going to touch on that in just a moment. Once again, the Philadelphia 76ers fall to the Knicks 111-99. We're going to touch on that even more as we go throughout this episode here. But we're going to look at some positive things about this matchup. It's not all negative, people. Joel didn't have the best showing. We're going to look on the positivity on this coming up in just a moment. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get in a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com today. So I just brought up the NFL, and it's kind of a perfect segue into some of the bets that we're going to look at with FanDuel. It's the Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night. I cannot wait for this game. I think it's going to be fantastic, a shootout. And right now, FanDuel has the Philadelphia Eagles as -3 favorites at this moment. So if you think that the Eagles are to come to town, make sure you go to FanDuel right now. Once again, these odds are switching each and every day at any moment. So make sure you go place your bets if that's what you feel strongly about. The Commanders and Eagles, let us know who you have in the comments. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to stick with the Philadelphia Eagles, though. The Philadelphia Sixers podcast, the Philadelphia Eagles, brotherly love. We're sticking with the Birds. We'll see who comes out on top in that game. But let us know in the comments what you place your bets on with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, so make sure you go check it out today. All right, so we got Paul George and Jared McCain, some Sixers standouts in the game last night against the New York Knicks. And finally, we can talk some positivity with Joel Embiid coming back about some other players. So for me, this is what I've been waiting to see from Paul George. We've seen the facilitator. We've seen him take the last second shot, but last night was the game that I really like to see him in. And I'm going to bring up some specific scenarios here. Late in the game, you have 3 minutes left. The Sixers are down by 11. And a lot of the time you say, all right, well, they're probably not going to win this game. The Knicks just keep going down and scoring. Let's just kind of throw in the towel. Paul George is putting up 3 after 3 and still trying to come back in this game and not letting it go away easy. Now, they do end up falling, but this is a game to me that was really important to see how Paul George could kind of take over. Now, if you have Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, that's going to help even more. But Keith, there's going to be situations where it is going to be Paul George game. Tonight was that night where he showed he can kind of take it over a little bit and really get those numbers up there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with he was getting easier looks because Embiid was on the floor. I mean, if you notice from the first play of the game, Embiid gets the ball at the high post, and then next thing, not the high post, but at the top of the at the elbow, and then all of a sudden Paul George just streaks to the basket and he gets it. So it's different when you're the guy and everybody is basically attending to you. I mean, everybody's focusing on you, and now everybody's looking at Embiid, and then next thing you know, Paul George gets heated up and he starts making 7 out of 11 threes. So yeah, I feel like this was his best game. He looked like the guy that the 76ers wanted to pay the money to. In addition to having the 29 points, making 7 threes, he also had 10 rebounds and he had 3 steals. So he looked good. Now, another person that we didn't even mention who looked good and was freed up was Caleb Martin, because get this, now Caleb, he doesn't have to be the guy that you have to go through. He can just roam around, do what he has to do, and then all of a sudden, he shot 7 for 10. So yeah, they were, those two guys, in addition to Jared McCain, they were highlights for the Sixers. I mean, McCain ended up with 23 points off the bench. I mean, it's his second back-to-back game with 23 or more points. So, those 3 guys looked really, played really well for the Sixers. Unfortunately, a lot of their teammates couldn't match what they did.
Yeah, and we want to keep things all positive here, but we also have to be realistic on Locked On 76ers. So when I'm watching this game last night, the biggest thing that I look at is I really don't want to see the 76ers take on the New York Knicks or the Boston Celtics, who we saw the Knicks take earlier on the season in round one or round two, really at any point of the NBA playoffs, because the Knicks just looked like an overall much, much better team. I mean, they couldn't keep up with Josh Hart. They couldn't keep up with Cat. Now, Cat and Joel, that dynamic will change as this year goes on. But so many pieces for the New York Knicks continue to help them out. When you have a guy like Josh Hart going out there, being the hustle player, he's so much more than just a hustle player. And Keith, this is somebody before coming into this game that you said, well, the Sixers have to watch out for. And they really weren't able to do the best job on him last night. Jalen Brunson went out there and did his thing. Getting back in transition against quick teams, it's just been really tough for this squad. And I'm not saying that Joel Embiid was going to come in and fix everything. I did think it would be a little bit better because the Knicks kind of looked just like on a completely different playing field last night than the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, they did. And the thing about it is, like, I mean, think about it. No, Jalen Brunson didn't have a really good game at all. I mean, this guy had 6 turnovers. He shot 5 for 15. He was 0 for 4 on threes. Mikal Bridges has been struggling mightily, and he shot 7 for 13. To me, the problem was really it was just the 76ers just can't shoot the ball. I mean, they haven't been able to shoot the ball all season. I mean, they shot 37.3%. And when we talk about it, you know what? I'll say the 3 guys that we mentioned shot the ball well, right? When I'm talking about PG, I'm talking about Caleb Martin, I'm talking about Jared McCain. And then another guy was solid, but on a defensive end, he struggled a little bit, was Andre Drummond, right? But he was 2 for 4. But then when you look at it on the offensive end, Kyle Lowry, he was 1 for 5, 0 for 4 for 3. Kelly Oubre, 1 for 6, 0 for 2 on threes. Jeff Doughton, who had a heck of a game 2 nights ago, he was 0 for 4 shooting. Yabusele, he had 3 points on 1 for 7 shooting, right? So when you look at it, it's just to a point where, yes, the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers are all, good teams, this and that. But the Sixers are going to have a hard time beating Villanova if they can't make shots. And that's how it is because, right now you're depending too much on Embiid. You're depending too much on Paul George and Maxey when he comes back. The role players have to be more consistent for them to win. They have to. And unfortunately, the Sixers just can't shoot the ball.
And key word you said there, consistent. The consistency has been nowhere this season for the Philadelphia 76ers. You mentioned Yabusele. The 8 rebounds were there, but the 3 points were there as well. And, game after game, they figure out these guys that are trying to step up. Gershon has a good game a few nights ago. They're still trying to kick it out, and it's just not working. Jared McCain has been consistent through 2 games, so we're going to wait and see what that is able to keep on coming. Kelly Oubre, too, he only had 5 points last night. I mean, there's really no consistency throughout this offense, throughout this entire team in terms of rotations. And it's tough to look at right now because everybody is going to say, well, the 3 stars haven't played together. That's why, that's this, that's that. Look at the New York Knicks. Looks at teams that people think are at the same height right now as the Philadelphia 76ers or are going to be at some point when they have all their stars back. You look at OG, 24 points, Josh Hart, 14 points, 12 rebounds, Towns, 21 points, 13 rebounds. Bridges, he's been struggling, still pitched in with 14 points. Brunson, 18. McBride, 15 as well. That's 6 players in double figures that really chipped in. And then they really only had 3 other guys that played a few minutes, but that was the core that was able to chip in and do a lot of different things. Cat also with 6 assists and Josh Hart with a triple-double last night. So there's a lot of things that these role players on the 76ers can't do. And I know what people are thinking. They're just role players. Why does it matter? How many years and how many times have the role players been a big reason that certain teams can get above the 76ers? The stars have been there, and I know some stars haven't been the best of supporting cast, but Keith, it's been the role players that consistently are disappointing. And I know it's early in the season, but it's a continuing story of this happening over and over and over
Well,
again.
the thing is, the gist is the 76ers came into this game ranking 26th in the NBA and field goal percentage, right? So, I mean, I get what they're saying, role players, but when your backcourt shoots a combined 2 for 11, a combined 0 for 6 on threes, and then you have your bench guys really struggling, like role players or not, they're all NBA guys, and
Yeah.
they need to shoot the ball a whole lot better than what they are, and because somebody has to, and like you said, is inconsistency with Yabu, but he played great for the most part, but it just seemed like on this particular night he just didn't have it, and maybe it's because this is a better team, and he got a little bit exposed on some of the things that he has weaknesses at, but at the same time, it's just one of these things where, these are NBA players. They have to shoot the ball better. They're getting open looks now. Like a lot of them are getting open looks because of the crowd that Joel Embiid draws, the crowd that Paul George draws. So, it's just a matter of them just knocking down shots. And that's something that they have to do. You're not going to beat, I'm seriously, you're not going to beat the Spurs. You're not going to beat the Utah Jazz. You're not going to beat the Washington Wizards. Any of these teams, if you continue to shoot 30-something% from the field, they got to get it up.
It's the NBA. They have to. They absolutely have to, because at the end of the day, you can't go into any type of postseason with 3 stars and guys that are shooting like that. You just can't. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And right now, they are truly being exposed. So we're going to preview this a little bit more going into that Cavs matchup, what Joel Embiid is saying about playing on back-to-backs, if we're going to see him against Cleveland. There's a lot more to unpack, so make sure you stay tuned here on Locked On 76ers. But we do have to tell you about Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you go check it out today. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes and a limited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. Make sure you see Mint Mobile for details. So Joel Embiid is trolling once again. I don't think it's the best look. Sometimes when he says he's trolling, I kind of have a laugh with him. But in this situation, after playing the way that he played last night and saying, well, I like to troll. I might be playing in back-to-backs, whatever he might be saying, might not be saying. I don't love that he's trolling anybody, because at this point, it's not a joke anymore. This team really, really needs him. So we don't know officially at this point if Joel will or will not play. We'll find out a little bit later in the day, and they'll make that decision. Keith, Joel says he wants to play. It's up to the medical staff, and that, persona right now has been put on Joel and really this entire staff of saying he's not going to play back-to-backs. But against the Cavs, they don't win this game if they don't have Joel Embiid and Paul George. They definitely don't win if they don't have either of them. How do you look at the 76ers coming into this matchup? It's tough to preview it right now because we don't know what we're going to have, but thoughts on his comments, if he's going to play, if he kind of needs to play to get that conditioning up. Where are you at with the 76ers and the Cavaliers?
I don't think Joel's going to play tomorrow or today. I really don't. And as far as okay, I feel like that whole I'm trolling stuff was damage control, honestly. He came out and he said what he said, and he meant what he said. And the thing is, you got to realize if he's not injured, and and you just come out and say you're going to miss the game, then the team could possibly get fined because
Mm.
you're not you know what I mean. It's just not a good look. So of course he's going to say he's trolling. He also said that he really wants to play, but he's leaving it up to the medical. Nick Nurse said what they're going. He hasn't ruled out them not playing, but they're going to test them tomorrow, and they're going to decide what they're going to do. Right. So to me, if he does play, is great. But what it is a convenient setup to say, oh well, we looked at it and we decided to rest him. This, what I mean. His knee felt a little sore, or such and such, or this and that. So to me, because you just can't come out and say I'm not playing on back to backs, right?
Right.
You just can't do that. So I felt like this was just damage control. Like, let me walk it back a little bit, right? And you're right. If he doesn't play, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to win. I mean, even as bad as he looked at times tonight, um, if he doesn't play, they got a big front line. Maxi is not playing. Let's just say if Paul George does play, this team is well rested going up against a veteran. I mean, going up against a veteran group, it could get ugly for the 76ers. It really could. But again, I've been covering this team long enough to know that there are certain times when you feel like they're going to get blown out, that they still a win. I just don't think that this is one of those times if Joel Embiid doesn't play.
Don't get me too excited because I said that yesterday about the 76ers pulling one out against the Knicks and Joel having a dominating game, and they just disappointed me completely. So don't give me hope here, Keith, because right now I'm going to stick to my thoughts and say they're going to fall against the Cavs either way. But I think the biggest thing for me is that Joel knows that he didn't play well. Joel knows that he's not in the shape that he wants to be in, whether he lost 25 pounds, whether he was dominant in practice, whatever that may be. So to me, these comments are not only, oh, we're trying to save ourselves because if we say this, that, and the other, we can't get fined by the NBA. And if Nick Nurse says we're going to evaluate them, then we're all good. We're in the clear. To me, it's Joel knows he played bad and he wants to say that he's going to play and he wants to play because he wants to prove that he can still be relied on and still be that player. Because we alluded to just the mental task it takes to come back from what is deemed to be his injury. He has the knee brace. You can tell he's playing a little bit timid. It's also that thought of, well, I played really crappy. I need to go out there and dominate like people know that I can. To me, that is what this overall line of these conversations and these quotes and everything going on means to me. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because how does the NBA look at it if Joel Embiid doesn't play or if he does and then Joel's just like, oh, I was just trolling. Was I fine this whole time? Was everything okay? Am I going to play back to backs? You're right. He can't just say he's not playing back to backs. So, and I don't want to make this a whole Joel Embiid conversation, but it is the topic of conversation right now because it's going to be a different game if he plays against the Cavs. I still don't think that they win, even if Paul George and Joel play, but I do want to see him. I know that the knee might be sore. I know that he said he's not playing on back-to-backs, but this is only going to be the second game we're going to see Joel in a 76ers uniform. I want to see him go out there and play if he's able to, if medical staff allows him, because I think he needs to redeem himself a little bit after the game last night against the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. The thing is, you got to realize this front line is going to be a whole lot more dominant than the than the one that they faced tonight. I mean, they had Jericho Sims, like being a ultra aggressive against them.
Yeah.
So I mean, dang, Jericho Sims had 2 offensive boards, and this is a guy who's been struggling mightily. So we're talking about this front line that they have coming up. It's going to be a tough matchup. So yeah, they will need him, but I mean, we'll see. I just don't. I don't see it. I mean, who knows? He may do it. They may do it just because. But my question is, this is his first game back, and you want him to play for the rest of the season, most games. and I don't know if I would push it right now. I
Mm,
just don't know. I mean, first of all, he looked fatigued. A lot of times injuries occur basically when you're tired and stuff like that. After the game, afterwards they put some ice on his knee, gave him some treatment and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe that was just precautionary, but we're talking about if the 76, like, even if he plays, I think they're going to lose, honestly. Even if
yeah,
he
I
plays, I
agree.
think they're going to lose. So we're talking about this guy being a major investment on the team moving forward. They got to go to Indiana. I'm not Indiana, excuse me. They have to go to Orlando, and then
Yep.
from there they go to Miami, and then they go to Memphis. I honestly think that they could win at least one of those games, maybe two of them, right? If Embiid plays better, I don't see them winning this game. So if it's me, I get what you're saying to redeem yourself, but I would rather have him a couple days off, rested, and not play 3 games in 4 nights, which it really would be, right? 3 games in 4 nights right out the gate. Because I think that they're going to lose this game no matter what, and you need him for the long haul, against these quality teams, in my opinion.
I don't want to see him get injured, but what I will say is that I don't think Joel Embiid's conditioning gets better until he plays these games.
Yeah.
We've seen it time. That's the only reason. Now, the redeeming quality is more of a him thing. For me, it's this dude is not going to get better at his conditioning unless he plays games. I don't want him to get injured. That is not what I'm saying. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if something happens, then this is what you said, or you pushed it too much. I need to see Joel Embiid play basketball, and the only way that conditioning goes up is if he plays basketball. So yes, I do want to see him play against the Cavaliers. Will he? I don't know. Is he trolling everybody? I don't know. We're going to wait and see. But to me, that conditioning needs to go up. I'm okay with him possibly missing that Grizzlies game or missing that Magic game, playing the Heat or Grizzlies or playing the Magic and the Grizzlies. But I want to see him play against the Cavs after last night to see if that conditioning can get a little bit better if he's fully healthy and ready to go. So we are going to wait and see as the Philadelphia 76ers play the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. Let us know in the comments if you want to see Joel Embiid play and if you think the Sixers can maybe sneak one out. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.